where do you want to start? Force Awakens turning 10 or Revenge of the Sith turning 20?
And I think we got to go with Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
2005.
Yeah.
We stayed up till midnight to see this thing because that's what you did back then. You don't have to now, but you did back then.
You had to
And
go get your ticket in line. Yeah.
yeah, it was really weird because my friend Jeff, my childhood friend, and
From the other side of the tracks?
no, that's Raymond. That's Raymond.
Okay. Okay.
Jeff was across the street. He's the other side of the street.
Okay.
I could throw a rock and hit his house. I could not throw a rock and hit Raymond's house, but I could, I could probably throw the rock 5 or 6 times and hit Raymond's house. But anyway, it was weird because in 2000, he and I went to go see Kiss in Atlanta on the farewell tour, and we're like, wow. And we stood there together and we're like, well, we started, liking this stuff about the same time, and now we're closing the book on the farewell tour. We're closing the book on Kiss Forever. I'm glad you were here for it. And then in 2005, we kind of did the same thing. Well, we're closing the book on Star Wars Forever. How does it feel? And in both instances, it was not the end.
I know.
But I really, the funny thing is I had a friend, unfortunately he's no longer with us, but I had a friend who used to always say of the prequels, because I would always say, the prequels are coming one day. One day he's going to make those prequels. And my friend would always say, yeah, I'll believe it when they're in the theaters. And so when that movie came out, it was George Lucas completing that saga.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, yes, when we were kids, we heard 9 episodes, we heard 12 episodes, but honestly, at that point, when he'd finished the 6, how did Darth Vader get there? How's Darth Vader get redeemed? You're good. I was good to let him off the hook at that point.
Sure.
I was like, you know what? I'm good, George. Thank you. You've done a good thing. Now go do Red Tails or whatever.
Small independent films.
Yeah,
that nobody's going to see.
Yeah, and apparently that's what's happened because we haven't seen them. But I was really kind of at peace with it. I was okay because I was 34. I'm dad.
Yeah.
I took my kid. I remember, I saw the midnight show. My kid was, it was a Wednesday, so Tuesday night into Wednesday, so I didn't take my kids to the midnight show because I'm a responsible adult. And so the next day I brought my kids back, and I knew that my 6-year-old son is not gonna, or 7, I get to watch Anakin totally immolated. So, I knew that point at which I was supposed to cover his eyes, which frustrated him. But, I did the good dad thing. I didn't let him watch I was like, son, it's PG-13. This is why it's PG-13. If you don't see this part, then it's not PG-13 for you. So Here we go. But I remember kind of taking that victory lap. I also remember going, this is a movie that is much better received than Attack of the Clones, which is good because I'm a size queen. I pay attention to the box office receipts, and I want Star Wars to do well at the box office. And so, I was like, this is going to do better than Attack of the Clones. It's being better received. So I watch it. Now it fell off pretty steeply, even though it was better received, and it did better overall at the box office than Attack of the Clones. But I'm going to say that the reason it fell off harder than it probably should have is that many people like me. Well, I'll just say this. I have a friend who kind of peripherally likes mine, and he knows I love Star Wars, so he kind of likes it by osmosis. But he's not fanatical. He's not going to go out and see it. He calls me up that weekend, the opening weekend. He's like, man, did you go see Revenge of the Sith? I'm like, yeah. He was working in a furniture store at the time. Did you go see Revenge of the Sith? Yeah. Did you love it? I said, yeah. He goes, it's great. I'm like, well, you're not a first weekend guy. What are you? No, we've been watching it all weekend here in the store.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, one of the guys downloaded. He put it on a disc. We're watching it on the big screen here in the store. And he, I was like, make me a copy of that, please, sir. And I got the copy of it, and it was the copy that got out there. And let me just say, they all leaked in some way at some point.
Yeah.
But because I had episode 2, I had a cam of episode 2 about 3 or 4 days before it came out. But the copy that leaked of episode 3 was gorgeous, and it had a time code on it. So it was,
copy as well. Yeah.
You got that copy.
Yeah.
So, that bootleg got around real fast to those of us who were repeat business for that movie.
Hmm.
And you would have a hard time convincing me that that did not slow down ticket sales for that film.
It wasn't that kind of the time frame where things really changed and people had more technology to be able to just
Mhm.
quickly turn that around.
Yeah, you started getting CD burners,
Yeah.
and people are making VCDs and that kind of thing. And yeah, so uh, it's out there. It's starting to circulate. People are
Right.
writing data discs full of the movie, and and we had a copy. But I will also say this, like, and I'll tell you my dishonesty. I went one day. Uh, my family wanted to go see. Well, we wanted to go see Batman Begins. That came out the same summer, and so we did. And I bought a ticket to Star Wars and went and saw Batman Begins. Um,
I
my
get you.
family later went to go see Madagascar. I bought tickets to see Episode 3, and then we went and saw Madagascar.
Love it.
So I contributed to the bottom line of this film.
That's good.
Yeah.
I similar, we're similar age. We have kids of similar age. Did the same thing, with my son at the time. It's very funny because Alfie and I, we had huge family because they knew me, Alfie, and a few others really loved Star Wars in our family. When Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones came out, we all went with these big groups of our family to those shows, right?
Mhm.
By the time we got to Revenge of the Sith, Alfie had kind of I was off in one direction. Alfie had in that 3 year time frame branched off in another direction. So that's the one we didn't go see together.
Mm.
So it's very funny that he and I, doing the podcast now, we can talk about like we remember seeing Phantom together, Attack of the Clones together. But Revenge of the Sith, he was off. I think he was in college maybe at that time.
Mm.
I have to. No, he wasn't in college. Anyway, yeah, he was actually because he was born in '70s. No, he wasn't. Anyway, we weren't together. He was doing one thing with his family. I was doing things with mine.
Yeah.
But my math was really bad there. But yeah, I mean that my mom after we went and saw it, I took her a different time because she always growing up she was one of the ones that took me to see Star Wars movies, so she wanted to see it with me. And she looked at me after it was over and she just goes, well, what do you think now that it's all over? What do you think? Is it, does it satisfy you to that's the story, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss not seeing Star Wars in the movie theaters anymore. I said, but I can, like you said, it tied it all up together. I was perfectly fine with how they wrapped it in. So I was good with it.
Yeah. It was not a going concern anymore. And then 2012 comes around,
Hmm.
like October 30th.
Yep.
And I remember sitting, we hadn't launched Dinner for Geeks yet, but I was sitting in the restaurant where we started Dinner for Geeks, that's how Dinner for Geeks started. My buddy Ryan kept bugging me to do a podcast, and he didn't. And Ryan is an idea guy, but he's not a fine tuning guy.
Sure.
And
I know that
he's
feeling.
he's got a lot of ideas, and he has a lot of really good ideas. He's a very creative guy. But he kept bugging me to do a podcast. And I think, his idea originally was we do a call in radio show like I do already.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. And I don't have time to do something like that. I don't have the
Yeah.
resources to set that up at the time. And so eventually what I said was, look, I'm doing trivia on Tuesday nights. When I get done, I go over to this other restaurant and I sit there, and a couple of the guys follow me over there, and we sit and we have dinner and we kibitz. And I said, that conversation is the podcast. If you would just show
Sure.
up there, we can record the conversation and we can just put it out. That's the podcast. And so that was maybe 3 months later. But that night, the guys from the Two True Freaks podcast like arranged a special emergency podcast because Lucas announced he'd sold, the whole
Right.
factory over to Disney, and they were going to make movies and they were going to debut in 2015. So I remember sitting in Denny's talking to the Two True Freaks guys with my buddies at the table about this changeover. The Denny's, by the way, which is mentioned in the Stephen King novel The Institute.
Never
That
read it.
Denny's, huh?
Never read it.
The Denny's where we first started Dinner for Geeks was years later mentioned in the first chapter of The Institute by Stephen King. Is that weird or what?
That is very
In the
weird.
little
You
corner of
you
Southeast Georgia.
you have some of the oddest little quirkiest
Yeah,
connections.
yeah, we did. I
Yeah,
mean, the guy literally says Brunswick, Georgia. There's a bowling alley with a Denny's attached to it, right off I-95. That's where we were.
right.
That Denny's no longer exists, unfortunately. But anyway, I remember doing that. And then when it came time for Force Awakens, I mean, things got turned up a notch. And you had kind of an interesting mix. You had us, those of us who were there all along,
Mhm.
and we loved it, and we still loved it, and we were ready to love it again. And then you had the people, the prequel fugitives,
Oh yeah.
the people who were very harsh to the prequels, ran them down at every opportunity. George Lucas raped my childhood and all that other stuff. I guess he roofied Indiana Jones, and anyway. Um, so you had those guys, and they were excited because we're going to make one without George Lucas, and so the hype was off the charts.
Well,
Now,
you had 3 groups coming together. You had the all-timers,
yeah,
you had the prequel haters
yes,
saying, "Maybe we're gonna get back to seeing Luke, Han, and Leia," and then you had the prequel lovers who were just interested to see because they were coming of age like we came of age, right?
okay,
Like
yeah,
yeah, like we grew up with the original, so we were excited, at least many of us were
yeah,
excited for the prequels to come out, right? But then you had others who now they grew up with the prequels, so they were excited for that next round of things to come out.
yeah.
So, but
That's
then
true.
again, you had the prequel haters who were probably pretty stubborn and not sure if they wanted to see it or hoping that Han, Leia, and Luke would be in it. So,
Now, take a look at this.
gotcha.
The
Oh
front
yes,
page of the Georgia Times Union. That is me. Actually, in this room, in that corner that's behind me, which totally looks different now.
looks much better now.
But I've got my Force Awakens shirt on and my Don Post Darth Vader helmet on, and all my Star Wars books around me. And everybody's got a Star Wars guy. Everybody's group of normal friends has a Star
Yes.
Wars guy. I am
Yes.
usually people's Star Wars guy. So when the newspaper, and I guess it was Mike Morrison was writing that, the late Mike Morrison. And Mike Morrison was a good friend. He died of ALS, actually. It was weird because everybody poured buckets of water on our heads and it didn't cure him for some
Didn't
reason.
cure him. Yeah.
No, but uh, Mike Morrison knew that I was his Star Wars guy. So he called me up and wanted to come over and bring a photographer and write a story and ask me questions. And so, and I've been in the paper several times as the Star Wars guy. When episode 1 came out, I was. When Empire turned 30 in 2012, I was for a newspaper article. And none of those articles, I didn't think any of them really got it right. This one got it right. Mike Morrison got it right. And
Do you
so
have
yeah,
a digital copy of that anywhere?
I
I'd like to be able
don't,
to
I
read it.
don't, but it's online because I know that because some guy, the news service that owned the Georgia Times Union also owned the Augusta Chronicle, and it got published up there too. And some guy on their website just started denigrating me for being a grown man that owned toys. It's like, dude, you don't have a hobby? Okay, just
Yeah.
checking.
Yeah, your hobby is accepted. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, exactly.
I I
It's
I I
okay
talk
to,
yeah. I
if you're tweaking a carburetor, that's okay, but
Right.
an action figure, no, that's not. So, but yeah, so and like a bunch of people jumped on there and started defending me. I didn't have to say anything to the guy back because a bunch of other people backed me up, which was nice. But so yeah, it's probably still online. And I got him to take a picture of my blue snaggletooth.
Oh,
How about that?
that's beautiful.
So yeah, I think it's still out there. I'm sure you could find a
I'm
copy of
gonna
it.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. I'd
Yeah,
like to read through it.
yeah, it was fun.
You're right though. We all have. I mean, we are all either considered or we have that person in our groups. I
I'm the
mean,
Star Wars guy. So, when Darth Vader breakdancing makes its way around the web, as it does every so often, I get sent 300, and that's like the worst thing ever to me.
yeah.
That is like the low point of Darth Vaderhood because I'm a Vader guy. And when Darth Vader starts breakdancing, I just lose it. I hate it, and everybody sends it to me like, "Isn't this cute?" It's like, no, it is not. Stop. And I'm also everybody's kiss guy. So I get that, and then every so often, Kiss working at Walmart makes the rounds, which was an ad they did for Sonic Boom in 2009, so 15 years ago. And every so often, that thing makes the rounds anyway. Isn't this cute? Yes, it is cute. I actually like that ad, but I liked it 15 years ago, the first 100 times I saw it. We're
Well,
good.
speaking of being the Kiss guy, I I need you to schedule and plan a weekend up here in the Midwest. I need you to come up March 29th for the Great Ohio Toy Show,
Uh-oh.
and they have Kiss toys. This thing is an entire fairgrounds. I've talked to Glosson about it, talked to other people about it. The Rule of Galaxy crew is going. We're going to have D-Doc fly in, but they have I've never seen as many Kiss and GI Joe and wrestling toys as I see it at this event. So I think you would enjoy it if you can get up here. If not, I'll just have to take pictures and send them to you and ask you if you want me to buy them.
It's in Indy?
It's in Xenia, Ohio, near Dayton,
Oh,
Ohio.
it's in Ohio. Oh, see, because if it were in India, I'd have a better shot at it because it's, my wife's still got family there and we could.
You can come up here and then just do a day road trip over there with the guys.
Oh, oh, oh.
See, D-Doc's going to fly into Indy, and then
Uh-huh.
we're going to drive over to Xenia for the day, and then come back to Indy.
Wow. Wow. I don't know. I'll look into that. I'll look into it. We'll
Because,
see.
then we can go do some comic stores and toy stores around Indy like you've
Mhm.
done in the past, but we can take the Rule of the Galaxy crew with you, and we can, yeah, yeah.
That would be
Just
fun. That would be fun. We'll see. I gotta check with the master,
I
and
understand. I
she's
understand.
working on her masters right now, so she's been pretty. I've already had to turn down a dinner invitation for next weekend because she blew up when I asked her. So
Well, then I'll give you this plenty of time, 3 months. There you
okay,
go.
that's good lead time. That's
Yeah,
good lead time.
yeah. So,
But
tell her you're
so
coming to see the family, and then you just hang
yeah,
out with us for a day or 2.
and then, hey, hon, I'm going to split off with these guys for a couple of days. Um, yeah, that we'll see if we can't make that work. No promises, zero
Okay.
promise. But I exist because
I know.
you did see me in
Yeah,
Indianapolis,
I know. We did meet up, but
and we weren't too far from a comic shop either.
we weren't. We weren't.
Like,
But
but as far as Force Awakens, I'll
yeah.
just say this: we have our Georgia Theater Company is the only theaters we have in town, and they have a thing called GTX, which is kind of their premium large format.
Mhm.
It's their version of IMAX, but it's not really IMAX. And I was kind of like, I'm not going to watch it here. I want to watch it on a real IMAX. Now I realized since then nothing was really shot for IMAX. There's no real reason to do that, but back then it made sense. And so we went down to St. Augustine, where there is an IMAX, an actual IMAX, and we went into the theater, and the IMAX screen that they have there is curved.
Oh yeah.
It's curved screen. Now, we got there later than I wanted to because there was a tremendous storm that day, and so traffic was at a standstill on I-95. We left enough to get there like way early, be front of the line, and instead we basically got the last couple of seats we could get, and we sat the front row,
Mm.
far right,
Mm.
and Jeff and his wife sat front row, far left, and because that's all we get, we couldn't get seats together. That's all there was. And I remember because it's on that curved screen and we're in the bottom right corner, the movie opens and the Star Wars logo, blasts out and starts going, and then the crawl starts. And the crawl comes on and then just starts curving away to the left.
Oh.
I'm like, where's the curve? Where's the crawl going? I was like, is this some? And I thought for a little while there that was some stylistic flourish they were adding to have the crawl kind of swoop away and go off to the left. And then I got through into the movie and I realized like the lightsaber comes out and it's curved. So yeah, this is just straight up
Yeah.
an unfortunate side effect of being in the bottom corner of the screen here. I did not make any more pilgrimages just to see that on IMAX after that, or anything really on IMAX after that. And I talked to the manager at the theater, and he's like, "Well, our GTX is taller than their IMAX in St. Augustine." I was like, "All right, you sold me. I'm good." Now, for things that are genuine, true IMAX aspect ratio,
Yeah.
there's a theater up in Savannah called Royal Cinemas in Pooler in Royal Cinemas. Um, and things like Oppenheimer, which was shot in true IMAX in certain scenes, that's worth going to see a real IMAX theater. But, just like a Star Wars, go see it on your premium large format screen and enjoy it. because otherwise you're going to wind up seeing the opening crawl flying off to the left.
Yeah, no, I've only seen very few things in IMAX. I've never seen a Star Wars movie in IMAX. Maybe I need to check that out, but sit in the proper seating. But
Yes.
I've been fine so far going to regular, nice theaters and checking it out. It's been no problem for me. But when you look at these two films, um, do you feel like there's anything that really left a mark? And like Star Wars left a mark, right? The original trilogy left a mark on society. Do you feel like anything from these two with their anniversaries coming up? Like I know they wanted BB-8 to be this. Oh, he is the new thing, right? Like
Mhm.
we all know, Baby Yoda is or Grogu, whatever, is a much bigger hit than BB-8 ever was or would want to be. At least I,
Yeah.
I feel like he is. Um,
No,
you
I
know,
agree.
Revenge of the Sith. I mean, while I love so much of it cinematically, I love the music, I love the scenery, I love the dark undertones of all of it. Do you feel like there were things you left from either one of those going, wow? I mean,
Wow. Yes.
yeah,
That gigantically long shot at the beginning of the film
yes,
is ridiculous.
it's a
Um,
fantastic scene.
and
Yeah.
I think that's one of Spielberg's. I think, because basically George sent a laptop over to Spielberg's house, and he sat by the pool designing a lot of, some of the action sequences from the film. And I'm pretty sure that really just ridiculously long shot where, when they pan down from their tilt down, excuse me, from the
Oh yeah.
credits, from the opening crawl, that one shot there lasts forever and a day. And I think that's a Spielberg one. But it is gorgeous. It
It
is a
is.
beautiful thing. I think General Grievous is part of Star Wars now, for all his little ticks and his coughs and everything. I think he's very much it. I think the Order 66 sequence is heartbreaking.
Hmm.
Um, Now I think Mace Windu's untimely demise, and I believe it should remain a demise. Um, because I some of these guys have to actually die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They have to, including Ahsoka, but that's a whole different episode. Um, but Mace Windu's untimely demise is amazing. I don't think there's anything that people came out of there going, "Holy cow!" like they did with Yoda fighting in Episode 2,
Yeah.
where nobody saw that coming. And BB-8 was supposed to break out, and I think BB-8 did.
He did well,
Um,
but
but BB-8, we got a lot of BB-8 fast, and I think that's kind of the difference between Baby Yoda and BB-8. Uh, Baby Yoda, and I'm going to call him that too, because that's the first thing that I
yeah.
said when I saw
Yeah.
him. I was like, "That's Baby Yoda," and I knew it wasn't going to be Yoda, but just
Hmm.
I was like, "That's going to be the internet name for this thing. It will be Baby Yoda." Um, he is a master class in how to create a product and market it and unveil it. Because first off, it's an adorable creation. The big eyes, the big ears. Um, so you got that going for you. Then you've got the fact that they didn't do any toys in advance.
Right.
They didn't show any licensees this thing, because then it would have leaked. So we all, as a nation, as a world, we all saw it at the same time for the first time. When that pram opens up, and the you know
Right.
he pulls his cover down, and there he is. And we all just went, "Holy cow," because we didn't see that coming.
Right.
BB-8 was heavily marketed, the Sphero stuff, and the Sphero stuff's cool. Sphero stuff's way cool. Um, but he was heavily out there. What was cool about BB-8 was that he was the two sections, and there were no joins
Hmm.
with them. And there was just a lot of, what I will say is, a lot of the sequel films are missing one of those George Lucas things, which is there's always innovation with a George Lucas film, and there's always a how did they do that with George Lucas films. I think there's not as much of that in the sequel trilogy, but there is with BB-8, because there was
Right.
at the time there was. I mean, we all kind of know how it works now. But back then, it was really very much a how does this work? How does that happen?
Yeah.
How can that function? And of course, they also tried to sell us on the notion that it was a real robot the whole time. But it wasn't. There were some amazing puppeteers behind it as well. But um, I think BB-8 did become a cultural thing. I think he did break out for a while. But I think it's kind of like the Porgs, where they were
Mhm.
ready for him to break out. They were prepared for him to break out. They marketed towards breaking him out, and he broke out. But he quickly became old news because we had our fill of him.
Yeah.
With Grogu, we didn't know he was coming. He hit us like a bolt of lightning, and then the demand started, and there was nothing in the pipeline. There was no product. Honestly, they did the same thing with Frozen. And I don't know if they did it with Frozen on purpose or by accident, but when Frozen came out, there was very little merchandise. There was very little in the toy stores, very little at the parks. Jeff, who's been mentioned 100 times this episode, called me one time from the Magic Kingdom. He's like, "Where the hell's the Frozen stuff?" I said, "What do you mean? They don't have any." He's like, "My daughter is crazy about Frozen. They don't have anything." And I don't know that one was on purpose, but it certainly served them well because
Yeah.
by the time they finally did get Frozen goods and merchandise into the stores, everybody was at a fever pitch.
Right.
It was kind of that way with Grogu as well, though I think Grogu was done much more on purpose. Um, he really broke out. I would say BB-8 did break out, but he was kind of a design breakout. It wasn't organic. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, because what I would say is like my wife thinks BB-8 is so cute,
Yeah,
and I think he's cute,
yeah.
but he doesn't hit like R2 and 3PO hit.
But that was organic.
Yeah.
I mean, BB-8 was this thing is going to break out. Let's break him
Right.
out.
Right.
The Porgs, these things are going to break out, and the Porgs did not break out.
Right.
Let's just be honest here. But yeah, I think a lot of it is it was contrived to break out, and I think that kind of thing doesn't have the staying power that something that's organic
Yeah.
does.
Well, I will say out of the out of the two trilogies, I have a hard time going back and forth between the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Is which one is my favorite one from
Mm,
that trilogy? There's different parts of each one that make me want to call them my favorite of the trilogy, but it bounces back and forth. And it's, probably if I watch one, I'm like, yeah, that one beats out the other one. And then I watch the other one and go, maybe I like that one more.
yeah,
But the Force Awakens, I left that movie. I didn't want to see Han die. Yes, I know. 10 years later, spoiler alert, Han
yeah.
dies. But I didn't want to see that. But it did hit in a lot of the feels to where I was like, I'm kind of interested to see where this goes.
Yeah,
I want to know where this goes. And I maybe I'm one of the few, but when Ray's walking up that hill to Luke, I I was jazzed. I mean, when they
yeah.
left that, I thought this is gonna blow up for these next two movies.
And it's a
And
great cliffhanger.
yes. I mean, I felt like you started building some. I got to know a little bit about Finn. I got to know a little bit about Ray. Kylo, I wasn't sure yet, the moody, brutish guy, but maybe he could turn into something. You didn't know anything about Snoke, obviously, when you left that
Mhm,
right there. But I was like, there's enough mystery, and they brought in enough meat off the bones to where
mhm.
I feel like this could go somewhere. Now, you're right. Beside, they brought back updated TIE fighters, updated X-Wings, but the other ships were blah in that
Yeah,
movie. So but outside of that, I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm all bought in to see where the trilogy goes. So that one by far stands out to me. I know there's people who love Last Jedi, and I know there's people who think, hey, Rise of Skywalker actually tied it all up and it felt good and it was a feel good movie.
I do love Rise of Skywalker.
And I like it second most
Yeah,
out of that trilogy,
yeah.
obviously. But it's still the Force Awakens is still like I still remember because I went with my brother, a couple friends, and my son, and we went to that late showing first night, and we all were driving home just the talk, the chatter, the oh
Mhm.
my gosh, what's gonna we were so many questions.
Yep.
And it didn't
And
really happen in the next two.
no, and first off, people, and it's funny because the retroactive filter has gone on this thing, and people tend to look back on the trilogy and go, "Oh, this was all garbage." But people did love that first film.
Hmm.
That first film made almost $1 billion in the United States.
2 billion worldwide, right?
Yeah, yeah, and people over, I think 2.2 maybe. It was like 967, 987, something like that. In America, it was the top grossing movie in U.S. box. I think it still is. Um, but people loved it, and really, they kind of had to kill the film. They had to go ahead and dump it out on home video and everything because they had Rogue One coming.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But I remember, that movie came out what, December 15th, I think,
Yep.
and it's me and the dates. Um, a-
I
and
actually wrote down some notes on it, so yes, I'm gonna look at that. Yeah, it came out. Actually, it came out 14th, December 14th in Hollywood, and then December 18th in 20 nationwide.
Oh, 18th?
Yeah,
Oh,
nationwide,
geez, I would have.
December
I thought
18th.
I'll have to go get my shirt out and see
You're,
if it's
I was
on.
gonna say you're gonna find it. I know.
Yeah. Anyway, it comes out in December, and by March, I'm still going to the theaters. Like Saturday night,
Hmm.
honey. There's a 10 o'clock show of Force Awakens. I think I'm just going to pop down there and see it. And then Steve and Shaz and I did a commentary track, if you remember,
Gosh,
or maybe
I
you did.
guarantee you, I listened to it. Guarantee
Um,
you, I listened to it
we did a commentary track while the film was still in theaters.
because you were the only ones in there, right?
Well, no, no, well, no. I acquired a copy, and we sat in my home theater room and recorded it. And then once it was done and we put it out there, I actually went to the theater and sat and listened, watched it in the theater and listened to my commentary
Oh
track
man,
because I kind of wanted to see how it played.
yeah.
And what I remember about the time I went to the theater to go with the commentary track was I was by myself, and I remember when the movie opened, the cop that was working security was like poking me, going, "Hey, you need to wake up and get out of here." I was like, "Oh, sorry." So I passed out during that last viewing apparently, but yeah, we did, and we actually I got a copy. It was funny because I got a copy of it, and I set up this plan to do a commentary track while it was still in theaters. And I think the RFR guys beat us to it, and I didn't know they were doing it. Um,
I can see that.
I think we just both, I guess, had the same idea. And I was trying to get Steve down here and Shaz, and I think the RFR guys put theirs out like a day before we did, or something like that. It was just crazy. And then for the second one, I was like, I'm going to get this immediately. Nobody's going to have a commentary track out before it for Last Jedi. And we did the commentary track, but I was doing it a different way. And I was using my Surface Pro, and my Surface Pro, about 30 minutes into the movie, my Surface Pro went to sleep,
Oh,
and I didn't know it. And so we finished the movie, and we had like 28 minutes of commentary. And they were all like, "Well, we're not sticking around for another viewing. We got to
yeah,
go."
yeah.
And so we never did. I did eventually release that, I think, on the Dinner for Geeks feed. Just kind of, here's the commentary that could have been. And
The
then when
Lost Files.
Yeah, yeah, and then when Rise of Skywalker came out, I got the band back together, and everybody came to my house, and we watched the movie in the theater room. And what I do is, back then I didn't have my mixer the way I have it now. I had everybody have a different recording device, and then I would just mix the recordings together. But we all sat in my little theater room, and we just did commentary over the movie, and I had it out. I don't think the movie was out a week before I had the commentary track ready.
Wow,
It might have been 2 weeks, but it was pretty close to the early stages of the film being out that we had a commentary track out for it.
it's crazy.
Yeah,
Our tradition was starting with Force Awakens. This little group, my son, my brother, a couple friends, my wife, we would do a movie per month leading into it. So we did Phantom Menace all the way through yeah, Return of the Jedi, not Revenge of the Jedi.
yeah,
We did those all in a row, and we watched Return of the Jedi like a week before we went and saw The Force Awakens. But we watched them all together so we could really be, way into it. Did the same thing for Last Jedi. Did the same thing for Rise of Skywalker, to where we took every movie, watched it, boom, 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 right into it,
yeah,
and it was a lot of fun because We didn't record them because obviously we didn't start a podcast until after
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker started. But those are some of the best conversations we've ever had. Is we would stay and talk for an hour or two after the movie is over about
Yes.
that movie, and then next month do the same thing. And yeah, I think I'd like to go back and do that again before the next one. Is get everybody kind of going through them, right? Cycling through,
Yeah.
having our new thoughts, whatever, bringing old thoughts, and watching it leading into the next one that comes out. But I don't know. We'll see. But that those were good memories, and like you mentioned, it was so different back in those days when you had to go wait in line, go get a ticket, all those kind of things to where then by the time we're going to these later movies, we were, hey, I went ahead and bought all six of us or eight of us tickets, just Venmo me, right? And I've got our seats already on my phone. It was just
Yeah.
a odd way to change things in that time frame.
Okay, so Rise of Skywalker came out December 20th,
Yep.
and we posted the commentary track on December 27th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was on Dinner for Geeks?
I posted on My Star Wars Story, Dinner for Geeks, and Geek Out Loud. It was
Okay.
on all three.
I'm going to go back and
We're
check
just
that out.
blanketing it. We did the Force Awakens commentary January 16th because it was kind of a thing that had been percolating.
Sure.
And but then by the time I knew what I wanted to do, I went ahead and had everything ready, and we were able to do uh, that. Now the funny thing is, there's a running joke in the Rise of Skywalker commentary in that the good copy of the film that I had to show on my theater screen was, let's just say, subtitle. It was not subtitled. It was subtitulado,
Okay.
and the opening crawl was not in English. And Steve will make numerous jokes about it, and I'm trying to stop him because I don't want people to know what we're doing. And you hear Steve make a lot of subtle jokes in other languages. That's what he's doing.
Okay. All right. What's funny is yeah, I just the other well, just a few weeks back, I recorded just by myself, just a quick kind of love letter to people who've been involved with Rule of the Galaxy and listened to Rule of the Galaxy and watched and everything else because we hit our 300th episode.
Yes.
And I didn't want to do, trying to do all the fanfare is very difficult and
Yeah.
hectic. And so we were actually thinking of doing some live recording at the Great Ohio Toy Show with any and everybody who could be there to kind of make it a celebration kind of thing. But then, not even thinking about it, just last week was our 5 year anniversary.
Hmm.
5 years from January 9th, 2020. That was Joey and I doing our first episode, January 9th, 2020. And so it's just sitting there and thinking how much all this has changed and how I went from a listener that thought that you and Steve and Riley Blanton and his group and Jimmy and Jason were so fun and entertaining to listen to that it made me and Joey want to do this. And now here it is to where we've done 305 episodes, and you've been on I don't know how many. Steve's been on I don't know how many. Mark Newbold, I mean,
Love Mark.
Mark's the best. But you know, I'm thinking it's crazy how things have changed because I remember listening to all your stuff, and now your life has changed and things have gotten going different directions. To where how many episodes would you have been right now if you were still doing a weekly or however long podcast? And then Steve, I
Yeah.
crack up because he started, or when I started, he probably had 200 episodes in, and we both got to our 300th episode about the same time.
Right about the same time. That's right. That's right.
So
That's
it's
right.
it's just weird how it all changed because for me that was my mystery science theater. That was
Hmm.
my CBS radio mystery theater. Is I would have all your voices in my head each day. I would just rotate, which podcast I was going to listen to. So to see it all this time later and be talking about the good memories we have and thinking about these films and the anniversaries of these things that are coming up is just
Oh,
crazy.
and,
So
and I love that you're still doing this because I just think, there, I'm just going to say this. There are a number of reasons why I don't podcast regularly, and I just show up when people ask me to. one of the reasons is that I had to really kind of take a look at what I was doing, and is this serving my family the best way that it can?
Sure, sure.
And I felt like there were ways in which I could rededicate those resources to doing my job better,
Yep.
um, which would enable me to do better by my family. So you know, that's one of the reasons. The other reason was I ran into a large segment of podcasting fandom that were just not nice people. And I'm sorry, but there is a large segment
Yeah.
of people who are very successful at podcasting who are just not nice people. And I was like, I don't want to get into this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, it makes you want to run away. So when good people keep doing this and good people keep producing quality content, it makes me happy. So I'm glad that you've gotten 300 plus out of this, and I hope you get, I hope you get 3,000 more.
Oh gosh, I
But
don't know. Hey, I'm at the point where I'm like, hey, Alfie, D Doc, you guys are younger than me. You guys ready to take this over a little bit, and
hey,
I'll just hop on from time to time, you know?
I spent for whatever reason I spent a lot of last year reading books about the late night figures.
Hmm.
Like I read a bunch of Letterman books and a bunch of Carson books, and to a person, all of them, once they started getting into their 50s, they changed how they did their show. Like you'll notice Letterman, once he got into about his mid 50s, he didn't do remotes a lot.
Yeah,
He didn't do the I'm going to go work the drive-in at Taco Bell and that kind of thing that he used to, that was so great. And a lot of that was because at his age he needed to slow it down a little. He couldn't take, the 16-hour days that he was doing before.
yeah, yeah,
And same with Carson. Carson backed off a lot. Letterman basically, if you watch, he didn't do a lot of pre-recorded comedy bits unless there was something really special to do after a while. He literally changed the show so that after the monologue, after introducing Paul, then he would just kind of sit down and talk for a while. And he would just have a thing he talked about for a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
And it was usually pretty good. And then they'd move on to the rest of the show, but they stopped doing a lot of the scripted bits, and they stopped doing, just because it was too much for him to have to rehearse it and shoot it, things that needed
yeah,
to be shot and go on location and all that other stuff. So they trashed that. And Carson again scaled back a lot of that stuff too. Carson also got to the point where he's doing 3 days a week, which
yeah,
does
yeah.
suck. But
Well, Fallon's now in his mid. He's my age or your
yeah,
age, so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts saying. I know he's an energetic guy,
yeah,
but I wouldn't be
dialing it back
surprised
a
if
little bit.
yeah, if
But
he
he's
was
got
like,
alcohol to fuel him, so he'll be fine. Uh, they say he's a very alcohol fueled guy. That's all I'll say.
okay, right
But
on.
just leave it.
Oh,
But
okay.
but no, but seriously, if you start to want to turn it over to some of the young scoundrels or whippersnappers, and just kind of show up a little less, I think that would be in the tradition of Carson or Letterman. I think you'd be fine. So
Well, there you go. Maybe I'll start doing the other show with my wife more, and because it is fun to do
yeah.
that because she's not the extrovert that I am, and
Mhm.
so I like to have to drag things out of her. But we have fun because it's a little passion of ours now that
Yeah,
we are empty nesters. We're like, let's go talk about places we go and things we do.
I think
Um,
that's cool.
yeah, so we're having fun. So she'll probably not agree or say that out loud, but she has fun.
Good.
But Scott, thank you for breaking away from your busy, hectic schedule, and I can't wait till the next time we all meet up. And I really, truly wish there was a way, and we need to figure out to where we get our crew and Adam Bray and you and Steve and Chaz and get everybody together somewhere in some centralized location, watch some movies together, go buy some toys and comics together, and just
Yeah,
kind of have a fun weekend or
just
something.
do a
So.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll plan that. We'll put that in the books. But thanks for coming and doing this. Like I said, we missed out on a few opportunities, so I wanted to at least with these anniversaries coming up, I wanted you and I to talk about it. And yeah, I had fun. I appreciate your time as always.
No, well, likewise, and I appreciate you just letting me start like rolling off of the mouth about whatever came out. So
I love it.
I'll be excited to go back and listen to it to see what that was that I said. So
I'm actually thinking right now as we're talking, I might break the show in half and do the half where we talk about just everything, and then the
hey,
half where we talk about the anniversaries. So
I am nothing if not a source of content. So just do what you got to do.
you got it, brother. Well, hey, Rule of the Galaxy fans, Star Wars fans, thanks again for being a part of what we do. I know you enjoy having Scott Ryfun on the show. So do I. This was episode 305 of the Rule of the Galaxy podcast. And until next time, may the Force and that dog be with you.